Well, thank you guys for joining me. I don't know if any of you have been to the previous webinars I've done over the last several months, or if you've seen me speak around the country. I want to tell you a little bit about me and about our studio, and then we'll kind of get into what we're talking about. I have been in the photography industry for 24 some years, 24, 25 years. Started doing essentially local photojournalism for a newspaper, and then eventually transitioned into doing sports photography for a college and university. During that time, I was doing side weddings here and there for friends and families, and really wasn't messing a whole lot with weddings, and was also doing some portraits and stuff. And eventually, after spending years doing sports photography and realizing that it's an absolute blast and I love doing it, you're not going to ever make a really, really great living at sports photography. Only a handful of people out there really make a great living at sports photography, and that's when they're working for like Sports Illustrated or USA Today or somewhere like that. So we transitioned into becoming a wedding photography business and also portrait studio as well. And let me tell you, if you are a photographer and you've never photographed a sporting event, I highly recommend going out and shooting a football game or a basketball game or a soccer game, because as a wedding photographer, if you think things are tough in terms of getting things right when they happen and anticipating things, once you photograph a sporting event where somebody scores a touchdown, you can't really tell them to go back and do it again. You have to capture it the first time. I can honestly say that photographing sports made me the wedding photographer I am today, and really influenced heavily how I work on the wedding day and what we do. So I highly recommend just going out occasionally, even if it's like a Pee Wee or a Little League game, going out and shooting some sports just so it kind of hones your skills in terms of anticipation and the way you work on a wedding day. At any rate, started photographing weddings about 15 years ago, and a few years into photographing weddings, my wife came to me, and she was at the time working for a life insurance company, and she had gone to college for psychology and just determined she wasn't doing what she wanted to do, and what she was doing had absolutely nothing to do with what she went to college for, other than I think the only thing she was using her psychology degree for was dealing with me on a daily basis. So she basically looked at me one day and was just miserable with her work, and I looked at her jokingly and said, well, why don't we teach you some photography, and we can become a husband-wife wedding photography team? And she said, okay, what do we need to do? And it absolutely freaked me out, because I was just kidding, and she was dead serious. So we actually went in and started developing her style of photography and taught her everything she needed to know, and she's now an amazing photographer, photographic craftsman, and has lectured all over the world with me, and is a full-time business partner with me, and has been for the better part of a decade now. So that's kind of where we came from. And from the photography industry, once she came in within weddings, it really kind of changed who we were and how we basically position ourselves. And she's kind of become a guru of making sure that we have a great look and feel within the community in terms of our branding and blogging and stuff like that. We're not going to talk a whole lot about branding and blogging today, but you know, it's a big part of being successful with your networking, is making sure that when you're doing the networking things that we're going to talk about today, you have some recognition and people can see you consistently. The one thing I will say is, you know, once you come up with a logo you like, stay with it for a while. Don't constantly change your logo. Don't constantly change the background of your website or your business cards or your various marketing materials. There's a saying that it takes being seen 3 times before somebody remembers you. And if they see you differently every time you see you during those 3 times, they're not going to remember you. It's almost like seeing 3 different companies. With us, the background that is on the back of our website is the exact same as the background that's on our business cards and our marketing materials. Our logo stays consistent. So every time we're putting a card in somebody's hand or an email is being sent or our website's being previewed, it's the same look consistently over and over and over. And that's the whole point of what you do in terms of marketing branding. So that's the extent of what I'm going to talk about with marketing and branding today. If you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer that, and that may be a great topic for a future for a future webinar. But today we're going to talk a little bit about networking within the wedding industry. And it's probably one of the most important things I can influence somebody to do is to build relationships with all the other vendors that you'd be dealing with, whether it's a florist or a caterer or a wedding planner, a venue, DJ. We're going to talk about all the things that we do that are successful for us. And I got to tell you, that's a huge chunk of our weddings each year come directly from vendor referrals. And, you know, a big part of it is just the things we do to make them know that we're a photographer that they want to work with. So let's talk about it a little bit. One of the first things that I want to talk about is taking a minute. We all work weddings on a regular basis with vendors, and probably most of us are doing bridal shows. And to me, one of the best things you can do is just to take a few minutes when you're working at an event or a bridal show. And I know it's a hectic, chaotic day, but take a minute and go around and either introduce yourself or reconnect with the vendors that are there. Bridal shows are fantastic for this. And we always try to go in early and get set up as early as possible. In fact, with most of the bridal shows we do, you can actually set up the day before. So we'll set up the bulk of our show the day before so that all we're doing on the day of the show is coming in, dropping off our albums, kind of straightening things up and making sure they look exactly the way we want. Then we can spend the rest of the show kind of walking around, introducing ourselves to new vendors that we think would be great relationships to have, but also reconnecting with the ones that we really have a great relationship already with, and reinforcing that relationship by saying, hey, can I give you a hand? Can I help you out with something? You know, and just taking the opportunity to strengthen that relationship. Doing those little things is fantastic, and it doesn't mean you have to spend a lengthy amount of time. A lot of times, like with our bridal shows, we'll have upwards of 300 vendors. Now, we're not trying to see all of them, but we certainly want to connect with as many as possible. So what we usually do is while we're going around and we're connecting with vendors, if it's a vendor that we don't know really well and we'd really like to get to know better, we'll say, hey, you know, we'd love to get together and have coffee sometime, or maybe grab lunch. Or if they have a venue, and this is really nice, if they have a storefront or a studio space or a space in general that is a commercial spot, we said we'd love to swing by and see your store or visit you at your physical location. Number one, it shows that you care enough and you're taking the interest that you'd like to see them. And number two, it makes it easier on them that now they're not having to go out of their way. You're going to come to them. And it's worth it, honestly, to take the time out of your day to find the time to go and meet with them. So just taking a couple of minutes to meet with them at the show, and then to take the opportunity to schedule a future opportunity to meet with them in depth to where you really can talk to them. And usually what we'll do is during our conversation, if they mention certain things that we think would be great to expand on, we'll actually take that conversation and the things that we discussed and go back before we meet with them again and kind of find ways to develop that even more in depth. That way, number one, it shows that we were really listening to what they were saying and we genuinely cared about the things that they were talking about. So, and that's important in building the relationship. And it's the same thing, again, if it's a vendor that we do know really well but we haven't seen for a bit, you know, we want to do the same thing. We want to try to set an appointment to come by and see them or grab lunch or a drink or something like that, just to kind of reconnect, to see where they are, see how things are. And, you know, to be honest with you, with those relationships, because they already know what our work ethic is like and they know how we operate as a business, that a lot of times becomes more about us saying, hey, how are the kids, how's the family, how's life in general treating you? A lot of times at that stage in your business relationship, it's more important to show that you care for them on a personal level, because once you get to know a company really, really well and you've worked with them a lot, if every time you talk to them it's business, 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 they kind of get tired of that and they start thinking, okay, this is just somebody that wants something from me and they want business from me, which is true. And honestly, they probably want the same thing from you. But if you make it a little bit more personal and you make it, you know, feel like you actually genuinely care about what's going on in their life, and you tell them about what's going on in your life, hey, I have kids and our kids are getting ready to start school, or they're doing this or they're doing that. You know, when they hear those things, it makes you not just a vendor, it makes you human. It humanizes you, which is so important, not only with vendors but with your clients. anytime you can humanize yourself and make them realize, this is a person that doesn't just come out and photograph weddings and work with me, but they also, they have to keep a roof over their kids and put food on the table, and it makes them sympathize with the success of your business. So by acknowledging that with them, by saying, how are your kids, how's your family, how's everything going with business, blah, 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 and then kind of reciprocating by saying, we're doing great, our kids just started school, we're looking at moving into a new house, or whatever is going on in your life, again, it humanizes you and it puts you in a great situation. So taking just a minute when you're at a bridal show or at a wedding to go visit those vendors is really, really going to go a long way. And then the next thing is keeping in touch. Communication is the key to a successful event. So with us, before every single event, we actually communicate. We get a list from our brides of all the vendors that are going to be working at a wedding. And we use that list to basically contact each of them to talk with the florist and talk with the caterer, the person that's doing the cake, the band or the DJ, and basically follow up with them prior to the wedding to say, when are you delivering things, when are you setting up, what kind of things are you going to have there, just so that, number one, it gives us an opportunity to have another contact with them. And that's one of those things, the more times you have contact with a vendor, the more they're going to become endeared to you and the more they're going to work with you. So we use every possible opportunity that's practical to contact vendors. If it's the cake person, what time are you going to have the cake there? If it's the DJ, what time are you going to be there setting up? If they're doing event lighting, what time is the lighting going to be ready? It's really great because it shows them again that we're proactive, and a proactive vendor is somebody that they want to work with. It makes their lives a little easier, and it shows them that we care enough about what's happening and that they're going to be there, that we want to show up and get great shots of what they're doing, and we want to be prepared. All the little details really kind of speaks to that same conversation. When we're talking with them, we're asking them, what kind of things are you going to have there? A lot of times, the planner or the florist are going to have a lot of little trinkets and things that are set up, and the planners are huge for this. I really, really want to know every little detail. We ask the bride to give us a list of the fun little things they're going to have, place cards or decor, giveaway, things like that. But we also ask the same exact questions of all the other vendors. If I know every single thing that they're going to have there, then there's no surprises for me. The last thing I want to hear is after a wedding, hey, did you get any photos of this item? And because I didn't know to look for it, and it was the only one, and it was kind of hidden in an obscure place, I missed it. But if I have that conversation with each of the vendors before I show up, then, I've gotten that list. It makes me a little bit more efficient. And then after the wedding, when I'm providing images to the vendors, I've got all those great images that, that they're interested in. And the reality is those vendors work so hard, just like the bride does, to come up with all those details, that if we don't take the time to get those detailed images, they kind of feel like it went by the wayside. And a lot of times they're walking around with their iPhone or a little point-and-shoot camera getting them because they're just so used to working with photographers that really don't follow through and give them images. And they really, really love it when they're provided with images from their professional photographer. So if you just take the time and take the few minutes that it takes to go around and get those shots of the details that are going to be there because you've had this conversation, then isn't it a lot better that they've got these great shots with your logo on it and your information on their website? They're showing you off. It's almost free advertising because you provided them for them. We're going to talk a little bit in a few minutes about delivering those images and how important it is, and great ways to get them in their hands. And I got to tell you, probably one of the biggest complaints I hear from vendors is, I always, we're always told by photographers that they're going to get us images. They always tell us, oh yeah, we'll get you whatever we want, whatever you want, and at the end of the day, we never get the images from the photographers. The best thing you can do is actually follow through on your promises. We get such heavy referrals from vendors because when we tell them we're going to do something, we do it, and we don't take months to do it. We do it quickly for them. The worst thing you can do is develop a reputation in the industry for not following through on your promises, not only to your clients but to other vendors. Because at the end of the day, if the only if the only contact that you have with a florist or a planner or a caterer or the person that does the cake is you telling them that you're glad to provide them with images, but then they never get them, then in their mind that means that you probably have you're probably having a similar experience with your clients as well, and they don't want to refer their clients to that experience because at the end of the day it's a reflection on them. So if they have a positive experience with you, then that positive experience is going to be passed on to their clients. And that's where we talk about timing being everything. Again, you know, delivering stuff really builds you a solid reputation. The other part of timing that's so important is on the wedding day. And again, we've talked to them about what they're delivering, but now we want to know when they're delivering. What time is it going to be set up? What time are you going to have the cake there? What time are the details going to be ready? What time is the lighting going to be up in the ballroom? What time are all these different things going to be there? If I know specifically what time the various details are going to be, and you know, honestly, most weddings, if somebody says, yeah, the cake's going to be there at 3, there's a good chance it's going to be there at 3:10 or 3:15. And sometimes it might be there a little early. But things are never exactly on time, or very rarely. But if you kind of have a little bit of a ballpark, then what that does is it allows you, when you're kind of working your schedule for what you're going to do that day, it allows you to essentially plan your day so that you can work little windows of opportunity. You know, occasionally we're lucky we'll have a wedding where the ceremony and the reception and everything is all happening at one place, and I'll have little windows of opportunity where nothing's going on. You know, the groom is fully dressed, I'm ready, and I've already taken him out, and his groomsmen have done fun photos, and Liliana's with the bride photographing her. So I'm just kind of sitting around doing nothing. And I like to take advantage of that time to actually stay busy and get photos that I can use for other things later on. So if I've talked to the person that does the cake or some of the other vendors and I know, well, okay, I know these things are going to be set up already, let me go ahead and get photos of those. That way later on during the reception or prior to the reception, I'm not screwing around to get everything because I've already gotten this detail. Now it frees me up to have more time to do other things. You know, and the other part of timing is keeping things on schedule. I mean, the more of that stuff I can get taken care of in advance, the more I can stay on schedule. And that is probably the #1 factor of referrals to me within the wedding industry of vendors that are actually there. You know, the person that does the cake and a lot of the florists, they don't really care about the schedule of the day. Once the stuff's been delivered, the only thing they care is that at the end of the day you deliver them some photos that they can show and they'll put on their website. But as far as the wedding planner, the caterer, and the venue, if you keep things on schedule for them, then you are a champion to them. I think so many of the vendors that are actually there on the wedding day, and the DJ included, they're so used to the wedding, the reception actually starting behind schedule, because a lot of times photographers will take the bride and groom out and they'll go to do these different fun photos of them, and they'll get them back 15, 20, 30 minutes late. Well, to us, we make it a point to always, always, always have the bride and groom not only to the reception on time, but a few minutes early. If we can keep things on schedule, then we've just become a champion to them, because now the rest of the night is going to run smoothly. If we get people there, if we get our clients there late, now they're having to spend the rest of the night cramming things together. Now they're doing the cake cutting and the toast immediately after the first dance, and then they're going right into the garter and the bouquet, and they're just having to cram everything together because everything is running behind, and it just throws the whole night off. The kitchen gets really upset because the food isn't as fresh as it would have been if they had served it on time. There's so many little things that probably as photographers we don't consider. I mean, one of the big complaints from a chef is they have a very specific window that they want to serve food, especially like a steak or a fish, because it's moist and it's ready. And they really don't want to serve it 20 or 30 minutes later than that because it's dry and it doesn't taste the way they really had intended. And if I can allow that chef to get the food out when it tastes great, then he's going to get great reviews from the clients that are there saying, man, the food is delicious. Where if we're late and we get the bride and groom there 30 minutes late, which means the food is served 30 minutes later, and now there's complaints to the chef, well, the food's dry, the food doesn't taste the way we expected. Well, we just made the chef look bad, and we didn't probably even think about that. And now the chef's upset with us, and he's going to go complain to the person that actually runs the venue saying, You know, our client's upset with us because the food didn't taste right, and it didn't taste right because it wasn't served on time. At the end of the day, that all trickles downhill, and that means that's a couple of vendors that aren't going to refer you because you kept things behind. To us, you know, and a lot of times it's not our fault that we don't get as much time to photograph them, because if the ceremony started late, and you know, if the ceremony was supposed to be at 5 o'clock and it didn't start until 5:15 or 5:20 because the bride's running a little late getting her gown on or something like that, every photographer thinks that, man, this is cutting into the time that I had to photograph. This is eating up my time, and it's going to push the wedding late. You know, at the end of the day, you know, we say, well, the ceremony started late and ended late, so, you know, I'm just going to start late and end late too. I've got my 1 hour window to shoot with, and I'm going to use that 1 hour no matter what. Well, you know, the better way to think is, you know, the bride and groom know things started late, but they also know there's a time schedule. So, you know, if I do one less spot, or I work a little bit faster to make that time up and keep things on schedule, it's going to be great. And the truth is, the venue, they could care less. It's not their problem that the ceremony started late. It's not their problem that things were running a little bit behind there. They still expect things to be on time. So truthfully, it's our goal and our job as photographers not only to capture great images, but to make sure things stay on schedule. To that end, when we do the group photos and the formals right after the ceremony, we work very, very much in a formula, and it's never taken us more than 15 minutes to knock out those formals, which then allows us for a nice window of time to do the fun photos around the city or around the venue. And, you know, the big thing with that is knowing in advance the photos you're going to take. If you're going to go to a different site or a different venue, know exactly what you're going to do when you get there, so that when you get there, you're knocking those photos out quickly, and you're not getting there to a surprise of, okay, well, the light's not what I expected, or I've never been to this spot before, so I don't know what I'm going to do with the bride and groom. Know exactly what you're going to do so you can kind of keep things on time. That is such a huge, huge thing with vendors, and I can't tell you how many times our studio's gotten compliments from vendors and gotten referrals from vendors where we've had brides show up and say, such and such said we had to use you because not only did you take beautiful photos, but you made the day stress-free because everything ran on time. And we have planners that refer us specifically because they know if the ceremony's running behind or things are running a little late, we're going to make that time up for them in the middle, still get great photos, and keep things back on time at the reception. That's just such a big deal to the reception venues and the planners. And if you guys can work that into your system of shooting on the wedding day, it's going to pay huge dividends. So now that you photographed the wedding and you've got these great images, it's time to kind of figure out things that you can do to further develop those relationships with the vendors. And display is huge. Being on display with those vendors is such a big deal. Here's a handful of the things on the screen: albums, gallery wraps, postcards, posters, business cards, banners. These are all things that we do absolutely free for vendors. Now, we do go through and kind of pick the vendors that we like to work at the most. So we very specifically target brides at the high-end venues. And a lot of times these venues have photographers that already have displays or things set up in there. And we're never looking to have somebody take something down or remove something from another photographer. If there's a photographer there, that's great. You know, we don't want to hurt another person's business, but we do want to supplement what's there by being on display with them. So, you know, obviously planners, they'll take anything you give them. If you have albums to give them, we give them albums. If we love to do albums for as many venues as possible. We've done albums specifically of cakes. We have several bakers here in town that we've worked with enough times that we had literally dozens and dozens of cakes. So we laid out albums of nothing but the various cakes that we've done. And what we would do is like a 20 or 30-page album where each spread was not only photos of the cake, but then photos of the bride and groom during the reception. So it featured some of our favorite photos and then photos of the cakes at the weddings as well. The other thing we do is we try to do gallery wraps for several of the venues at dress shops or bridal shops and places like that. And when we do the gallery wraps, we make sure that our logo's on it and our website is listed right below the logo, so that when somebody's walking around and they see great images that they love, they can look right at that image and see PW in the bottom right-hand corner, and right under it, pwphotography.com. We just want people to be able to very, very quickly recognize where that image comes from and figure out how to get to us. We have to always make sure that all the places that we have displays have fresh set of business cards or postcards there. And then with postcards, something that we do that's very unique to each one of our vendors, we don't just have generic postcards that are, you know, here's PW Photography, here's some of our images. We actually work with each vendor. We ask them to send us their logo. We customize the cards to that vendor. So if it's a caterer, or if for example, if it's a baker again, we'll go through and feature images, some of our favorite wedding images, along with the images of their cakes. And that way, when they have the cards there, on one side it has all of our images and our logo, and then on the other side we actually place their logo, and we'll have an offer from that company there. We actually just did one recently from a company that does invitations and save the dates and announcements, and one side again was just our favorite photos, because they don't come to the event, it's just our favorite photos, but on the other side it was an offer for 50% off of an engagement session as a gift from this company. So we tried to, again, work so that it's customized and unique to each company. And for the little bit of money, extra money that we spend to have a special batch of cards made for each company, it's well worth it, because they feel like, okay, they don't just have a stack of cards just like every other photographer has offered them. They have a stack of cards that has their logo and their information on it, and in certain cases, images from their events on it, so they're going to show that off, and it has a gift offer from them. We deal with a lighting company that we've done several weddings with that really we feel like wows brides and grooms when they see how beautiful the lighting makes it. So we've worked so many events with them that we actually created a card that has images of the reception venues and all the great things happening at the venues, that has this beautiful, beautiful lighting. And then on the other side, again, here's a discount off of an engagement session, and here's the lighting company's name and information. So the card serves a dual purpose. It shows our photography. It shows how great they can make our photography and the venue look, and it gives them the opportunity to give a client or a potential client a gift of a discount or whatever it is from our company. So they're going to be more likely to push that card. If they've got 10 cards from 10 photographers there, they're going to be more likely to hand that card out and push that card to the vendors versus one that's just generic images that have absolutely nothing to do with them and no information about them. Try to find ways to make everything you put in somebody's hands something that they want to hand out, not just something that they want to put out on the table. Same thing with posters, and posters are, you know, a little bit more economical version of a gallery wrap. We'll go through and get a 24 by 30 or 24 by 36 mounted on foam core, and it's considerably less expensive than a gallery wrap if you're on a budget, and gives you the ability to take some images or maybe even a storyboard, which are kind of all the rage right now. And if you don't know what a storyboard is, it's usually kind of a collage of images from a specific event with your logo at the bottom, almost kind of like a collage postcard or something like that. But doing a storyboard poster is a really neat thing to do. And same thing with the posters. We'll do a poster where it's an image or several images in a storyboard put up that has their logo on one side and our logo on the other. So when they're putting these posters around their storefront, it's showing their stuff off, not just an image that has nothing to do with them. It's showing their work off, and it has their logo and our logo on it, and they're going to be more likely to show it because they spend a lot of time branding themselves. They want their logo up there. And I want to go back real quickly with albums. A lot of times, because albums can be pricey as well, I absolutely love these new lay-flat press-printed albums from collagesWebinar. We use the heck out of those things. They're hard-covered. They have this brilliant wrap image cover on it that looks really, really nice. And then the pages are a nice thick paper that lays flat and looks great. And I can do these 20 and 30 page press printed lay flat albums for $50, $60, $70 for very, very inexpensive versus $200, $300, $400. So I can do lots of those, 8 by 10 or 8.5 by 11 size books that I'm leaving that shows off my photography and really lets me display something for very, very inexpensive. It's a great way to stay within a budget. The other thing we do is we do free business cards. We have hair and makeup artists and planners that come by, and we'll do free portraits for them, or we've designed logos for them before. But what we'll do is we'll lay out the front of their business card with all their contact information, and then we'll put photos, again, of events we've worked with them on the back side. And we'll always put our name just really small. We try not to be too obnoxious with our information on their business card because we realize it's their business card. But we'll put a small tagline on the bottom, all photos by pwphotography.com. And we always list it as pwphotography.com, but really small on the image side. So on the front side, they've got all their information. On the back side, they've got great images where they can put a business card in a potential client's hand and say, look at all these great things I've done. And they're going to show that off, and we pay for the printing of the business cards. They never, ever pay for those business cards. If we lay it out and we design it and it's got our images on it, I want to make sure that they always have plenty in stock and they're able to hand them out. And then last but not least, banners. Banners, same type thing. We actually, instead of doing the banners like you would see at Kinko's, or I guess it's not Kinko's anymore, it's FedEx, but the roll-up vinyl banners, what we do for banners is we do large, again, 24 by 36, almost like a poster, but we do it in a horizontal status. And we'll lay out their banner for them with their logo prominently in the middle, and then images, again, from events they've done around it. And I think we've done banners as large as 50 inches across. I think they were like 24 by 50 or something like that. And that works really nice, especially for bridal shows. If we're able to provide them with this giant 50-inch or even a 24 by 36-inch sign that has their logo very prominently, and then some of our images on the sign that they can hang up at their bridal show, it looks great. Now, that's probably the one instance where we really don't put any information about us on there. We don't put our name on their banner because the banner is all about them. We just place our images, and image placement is really key to us. If it's, we always try to make sure we use images that are recognizable as ours from our website or our blog or something like that. And we also try to make sure that we have a strong enough relationship with the people we're doing banners for that if somebody asks them about the images on the banner, they tell them, oh yeah, PW Photography took that. So all of those are great things that are creative ways to help you get things on display at your various vendors. And there's tons and tons of other things that you can do as well. That will allow you opportunities. It's really great if you look at the various emails that you receive from companies, including collages.net, about new products that could work really great. I know I'm really excited about something that collages.net just introduced. And Kevin, if you're there, you can chime in about this. It's kind of a storyboard gallery wrap type thing that has separate little squares plugged into it that you can change out. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And it's really cool because a lot of it is a product that is out there, but with our collages.net is actually the only vendor that you can replace the story blocks. You can actually replace them as the years go on. So when your customers need to update any of their images, you can actually take them off. You can bring them in for another studio session, maybe a whole other portrait shoot to get another couple blocks to update their story block. We actually have a coupon code for that at the end of the webinar too. So
well, let me tell you my thoughts about that, Kevin. And this is when I saw that, here's what excited me about it. If I have a vendor that I work with a lot, what the idea that really appeals to me is I can create one of those where the back is a little bit more generic, maybe something that fades away a little bit, but with their logo very prominently. And then every year or so, I can provide them with brand new images to put on that, so they can swap those images out as much as they want. And my cost stays way, way down. I'm investing one time in a really nice storyboard type thing that I can just update the smaller images that are on it very easily. And it's exciting to them because it's three-dimensional and the image just kind of jumps off at them. And they also are told when we can drop it off that, hey, you can swap this out. Has anybody done that yet? Because that idea to me, I can't wait to implement that. Is that happening yet, Kevin?
As far as with sending them out for vendors, I haven't heard of any yet just because we literally just launched them. But when you start to do it, please take a picture so we can share with everyone on the webinar.
Well, I'm hoping some of the people that are here that are attending will join me and be some of the first ones in the industry doing this, because I think this is such a new product, and I think right now the typical photographer seeing this and saying, hey, this is going to be really great for my clients, they're going to love it. But, you know, my marketing mind is saying, yeah, that's great for my clients, but, man, it's even better for my vendors, because if your vendors are excited about something new that they can hang in their store and their display that nobody else has, and that's going to be really, really cool. Plus, it's, you know, I don't know the fee of it yet, but I'd imagine it probably costs a little bit more than a gallery wrap, but at the end of the day, I'm willing to invest more in something that's going to cost me less in the long run, because I'm not constantly having to completely replace it. I'm just having to replace small elements that are on it. I think that's going to be a gold mine. I can't wait to try that out. I've got a couple of companies that I'm already thinking about doing it. I'm really excited. Definitely, as soon as we do that with the vendors, I'll shoot photos over for collages to put those up for you guys to see. And like I said, we look at these emails and everything that we get that's a new product, we're like, you know, not only how can our photographic mind goes, not only how can we offer that to our clients, but how can we incorporate this into our marketing and advertising in a way that will be creative? Because the biggest struggle we have is that we all see the same things as photographers that we can offer, and a lot of us are doing the same thing. We're all doing postcards. We're all doing albums. We're all doing different little things. If we can find something that's new and unique and find a way to incorporate it, and we're the first ones to do it, that it gives us that little edge. So check those storyboard things out. I'm really stoked about that. Next is networking groups. Now, we talked about, you know, how to maintain the relationships of the photographers that you've got. Now let's talk about creating new relationships. And, you know, to us, one of the big things we do, we've got lots and lots of wedding groups around here, the networking groups that are around in our area that are fantastic for us. And we keep a separate calendar, literally, of all the different networking opportunities we have, and we know we're not able to attend all of them, and you really don't need to attend every single one, but you need to keep your face out there freshly enough that it's effective and people remember who you are and they don't think you've disappeared from the industry. But, you know, the bigger thing is to also find groups where you're one of only a handful of photographers versus a gazillion photographers. Bridal associations are nice for that, and some bridal associations limit the number of types of vendors you can have. So they may say, you know, we're not going to have any more than 10% of our membership be from photographers. So, you know, if that's the case and they're already full, get on the waiting list. So if a position opens up, you have the opportunity to move into that situation. But, you know, these wedding groups and bridal associations that have networking groups are great. Another thing that's really quickly expanding is NACE. And I don't know how many of you have heard of it, NACE, but I would definitely Google it. It's the National Association of Catering and Events. We've got a really good-sized chapter here in Richmond. And like I said, they're all over the country. And we're literally the only photographers that are there. It's the top venues, it's the top caterers, and it's the top wedding planners that work at events in Richmond, and we're the only photographers. So every single month when they have a meeting, we're there, and the meetings are great because they're always a fully catered dinner by these vendors. So you get to go in and you spend a little bit of money to come in, but you have this really nice catered dinner, you network, and then they have a program where somebody in the industry is giving a program, and it's not a photographer, it's you know, a lighting expert or a tent expert or a catering expert or a planning expert, and you get to learn a little bit about what they do and show some interest in what they do. But if you're the only photographer there, I mean, the reality is, as a photographer, why would we look at National Association of Catering and Events? It's not about photography, it's about venues and catering and planning. So we looked at it as, yeah, but that's a gold mine, man. That's all the vendors that I want to work with. So if we can just go ahead and join there, then we're the only photographers there. And now every single time we go, we're building this really strong relationship with these vendors, and it's fantastic. It's been very fruitful for us, and we've really strengthened our relationships in that arena. So looking for organizations and groups like that, I think there's one called ICE, ICE, and I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but just look all around and look for catering and event organizations and associations. I'm sure you can Google it and they'll pop up for ones in your area, and see what kind of associations and organizations exist that don't relate to photography that you can attend. Training and boot camps are also a fantastic opportunity. We have a bridal show that comes through twice a year, and every single time they come through, they do a bridal show boot camp. And, you know, the reality is we've done bridal shows for close to a decade now, and there's not a whole lot of information that they're sharing at bridal shows at the boot camp that's new or that's extremely helpful to us. But it is a great opportunity for us to show up and, again, put our face in front of all these non-photography vendors, and a lot of times be the only photographer there just by showing up. These little training sessions and boot camps that are happening, they're a treasure trove of vendors, and it's another opportunity. It's not a network-specific thing, and I think that's the fault of a lot of photographers. When they're looking for networking, they actually specifically search for networking groups. And you don't have to go to a network group to network. You can network at a training or a boot camp or whatever. We go to a lot of business and store openings. The same company that I was saying that we work with that does invitations and stuff like that just recently moved one location and opened 2 new ones. And, you know, we make it a point to show up and go to their grand opening and their new venue opening and check it out and be supportive of them, and also, again, network with the other vendors that also showed up to support them. Any opportunity we can have to meet with these vendors is gold to us. And then, again, if you're in an area that doesn't have one, start one. We had a vendor that came in town a couple of years ago, actually not even a couple of years ago. She does hair and makeup, and she was new to the area. She didn't know a whole lot of people, and she wanted to find a way to meet people. And in her mind, she didn't see a whole lot of networking groups, and I think it was because she was new to the area and didn't know where to look. So she decided to start something called Wedding Wednesdays, and once a month on a Wednesday, she would find a different venue and say, hey, can we come over and have cocktails? And, you know, it wasn't a thing where she was asking for anything for free, but she started a Facebook group called Wedding Wednesdays. And it was kind of a neat idea, and it very quickly, it started out as 4 or 5 people that went and had cocktails and grew to 15 to 20 to a point where I think last month the one we had was hosted at an entertainment group where they set up a stage and a tent, and it was catered. They had 2 live bands that did sets, and there were about 40 different vendors there. And again, there were only maybe 3 or 4 photographers there, but there were hair and makeup artists, there were wedding planners, there were DJs, there were caterers, you name it. There were all different kinds of people at this event. And this was all started by somebody just like you and me that said, you know, I want to create an opportunity to meet with other vendors and network. And, you know, her business blossomed in 1 year. I think this year, which was her first year in Richmond, she told us she had done 40 weddings, and next year she's already got 50 weddings on the books as a hair and makeup artist. And she's brand new in town. Nobody knew who she was a year ago. And just because she's done these Wedding Wednesdays, she's gotten her name out there so well through this group and through this networking that her bookings are completely stacked to where she's now turning business away. So imagine if you as a photographer said, you know, I'm not really crazy about the networking groups we have here. I don't think they're active, and I don't think they bring in, you know, the vendors that I'd like to see, or there's nothing at all and I want to start it. You know, the person that starts that and the people that are really instrumental in getting that going are going to really, really benefit very strongly for us from it. So I highly, highly recommend, if there's not one in your area, start one, or if there is one in your area and you just really don't get much out of it when you go, start one that you think will do the things that are necessary for you to grow from. That would be hugely beneficial for you. Next, plan stylized shoots. And this is a growing trend in the photography industry, and it's really kind of cool and fun, and it also presents you with an opportunity to meet your very specific vendors. Now, if you're not familiar with what a stylized shoot is, it's essentially when you work with a handful of the vendors in the wedding industry, and you get a model to pose as a bride, and you get a model to pose as a groom, and you put them in, romantic settings that include some really cool details and different shots and things like that. And it produces, number one, really great images for your portfolio, but it also produces great shots for the other vendors that are there. There's actually contests that happen every single year. I'm trying to remember the name of the one that we did last year. The shoot that we did last year, Inspired Creations. I think it's inspiredcreations.com that we did this year. That every single year they have a stylized shoot contest, and there's a lot of them out there. So you can actually, I think, Google stylized shoot contest, and they exist. And a lot of times they'll have themes and different things like that where you can actually, you have to stay within a theme. Well, the neat thing about a stylized shoot is if you see a planner that gets really good weddings and gets a lot of them, you can actually go to that planner and say, I've been thinking about doing a stylized shoot. I'm working on lining up some models and everything, and I would love it if you came and actually designed the shoot in terms of maybe setting up some neat details and maybe a reception type table or something like that, that I'll shoot the details of that and then incorporate the bride and groom and come up with some really neat photos. And then you go the next step and say, okay, I've got a planner on board that's going to do that. Let me go to a florist and see if the florist will, donate the flowers for centerpieces and bouquets and a boutonniere. Let me go to a lighting company and see if they'll kind of light the area for us. And let me go to a company that does a cake and see if they'll put a cake together. You're essentially almost building a mini reception, but the nice thing is if you get a great team together and you get the hair and makeup artist to make the models look great, then they're all going to work really hard to make this as amazing and as beautiful as possible to give you fantastic images. And again, you're not doing this for you, you're doing this for the opportunity to work with each one of those vendors, because now they're thinking, hey, we get to work as a team, and hopefully you have a great time working as a team, and they want to work as a team together again. And I said, man, that was so much fun working with you. I got great images out of it for our portfolio. Now they're going to take the images from that stylized shoot you do, and all of them are going to put them on their websites. They're going to blog about it and create a buzz, and all of a sudden everybody's saying, man, what's going on with that photographer and all those vendors? They work together to put together this really neat thing. I want to be a part of that. And it just creates a buzz. It buzzes everything. And that's something you can do yourself. It's just so easy to put something like that together. You can go to a gown shop and see if they'll let you use one of their model dresses. In exchange, you'll give them shots from the shoot showing off the gown. It's just, there's so many ways to approach that, and it really is a great opportunity. And if you're a new photographer and you're new to the industry, it also gives you an opportunity to build your own portfolio and add some really great images that may show something a little nicer than the weddings that you've done so far, because you got to build it and incorporate the things that you want in it. So planning stylized shoots is fantastic and hugely helpful. Now, you've got all these images. Here's the two things that we really use to get those images out there. And Two Bright Lights is relatively new, but hugely popular and growing really quickly. If you've never heard of it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's twobrightlights.com. And the way Two Bright Lights works is after every single event, you get to upload up to 100 images on their site, and you upload full resolution images. It's protected, so only the people you share with get to see it. But basically, what we do is we upload up to 100 images specific to the vendors we worked with. Then we go and invite each of those vendors to that specific gallery. So they are only able to, it kind of works like Dropbox if you're familiar with Dropbox. Only the people you invite to that gallery can see it. So we would put in a handful of images of the cake, a handful of images of the venue, a handful of images of that show the lighting, that show the rentals of the tables and the centerpieces and the flowers, and we would invite each of the vendors that contributed those items to that gallery. Then those vendors are able to instantly just download whichever images they want at the high resolution, and it's instantly watermarked with our company's name on it. So the nice thing about that is I'm not having to guess at the images they want. I'm not having to take the time to go through and watermark it, because Two Bright Lights automatically does that. And it gives them, as the vendors, the opportunity to kind of swim through the images and see the things they want so they can handpick the images that they'd like to have. So that's a really, really cool opportunity and way to use that. The other really great thing, and probably my favorite part about 2 Bright Lights, is they work in conjunction with several of the largest national blogs as well as several of the large national magazines. And basically, every time you post an image gallery up there, it becomes available for these national blogs and national magazines to then consider for publication. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Not only are you getting images posted out there to share with other vendors, but you're also getting images out there to potentially be considered for publication. And we've actually had 2 of our weddings that we posted up there published, one in the national blog and the other one that's coming out in a magazine. And it literally was effortless. All we did was put them up there to be selected by our vendors, and it actually ended up benefiting us for publication. So a great opportunity there. And to that end, we use collages.net very similarly. Every time we post a gallery for collages.net, we also will send an email to every single vendor that had anything to do with the wedding, inviting them to the gallery and giving them instructions for how to create a favorites folder. Now that gives them, 2 Bright Lights gives them specific access to the ability to download their favorite images instantly, but it's limited to 100, so I really can only put 100 images in there. Collages.net allows me to send them the entire gallery, the entire wedding day. So a lot of times there's images that I wouldn't have thought that they would have liked, the images that were, to me kind of obscure, that, they're great images, but maybe something that doesn't showcase them as well as I would have thought, but they really love it. So it gives them access to every single gallery, every single image in that gallery. And with the instructions of the favorites folder, they know all they have to do is go in, tab an image as a favorite. Once it's in the favorites folder, we know that we can then provide them with that high resolution image. And with that, we're actually able to be a little bit more specific with how we watermark it. The 2 Bright Lights definitely does put our PW photography watermark across the bottom of the image, but it doesn't put our logo on it, and it doesn't give us quite as much control as we would like. So with collages.net, with the favorites folder, especially with vendors that we want to have more control of the way the images are presented, we invite them to the collages.net one when they create their favorites folder. Then we put our full logo on the image and present it exactly the way we want. The 2 of those work really nicely in conjunction for us in terms of getting images to the vendors very, very quickly and presenting them with the images that we'd love to see. And again, like I talked about earlier, it's so important that when you promise images to the vendors that you follow through. And now with galleries like collages.net that are out there, being able to share those images quickly and instantly with them, it allows you to do it almost effortlessly, and it makes their lives easier and makes your life easier as well. So definitely use that for that. So the other thing I want to talk about today, and I'm kind of rushing through things because I know we're running near to an hour, and I know Kevin always says, Pete, don't worry about it, you can go as long as you want, but I know a lot of you probably allot a specific amount of time, so I want to go through a little quickly and ask questions if you want me to cover a little bit more in depth. Everybody talks about Facebook do's and how to do things on Facebook that are going to be really beneficial, but a lot of people don't talk about Facebook don'ts, and this is important with networking as well. We actually have 2 Facebook pages. We have mine and we have my wife's, Liliana. And one of the things, mine is the one that's really more for our clients and for companies that we network with, and Liliana's, my wife's, is more specific to very personal. It's family and things like that. And the biggest piece of advice, and it makes me crazy when I see vendors, because we've got a lot of photographers that are friends on there that they use their page the same way. Their clients are their friends, and other vendors are their friends. And when I see them talk very, very passionately about politics or sports, there's nothing wrong with feeling that way. If you're very staunchly Republican or very staunchly Democratic, great, good for you. I think that's fantastic that you're supportive of American politics. However, consider that you could very quickly and easily turn off one of your potential clients or a vendor who feels exactly opposite. And there are people out there that are so passionate about their sports team or their politics that if you say, oh man, I love the Dallas Cowboys, Now all of a sudden you got this vendor that hates the Cowboys so much, and they're such a big Redskins fan that they refuse to work with anybody that likes the Cowboys. Or if you say something bad about the president, and now all of a sudden you've offended somebody that loves the president, and because of the approach you took, they don't want to refer you. So in general, we just say, leave politics and really passionate sports talk out. There's definitely a place for it, maybe on your personal page if you don't use that, but try not to mix and mingle really, really personal stuff with potential vendors and clients. Don't use bad language. I see so many photographers on their Facebook page that, again, their clients and vendors see dropping really, really foul language. And, there's nothing wrong with it in your personal life, but, that's the face you're putting on your company. And it just doesn't come off as very professional. Don't critique other vendors. We've all done weddings where a vendor just didn't behave professionally, didn't act the way they should, or didn't follow through the way they were supposed to. We've had weddings where DJs got drunk because there was an open bar. We've had weddings where the florist didn't show up with all the flowers, or the cake didn't even make it to the wedding. But we never once commented about it on Facebook because, at the end of the day, if the bride is upset enough by what happened there, she's going to say all the things that need to be said, and she'll get it out there. And it sounds a lot better coming from the client than from another vendor. Because at the end of the day, if one vendor sees you trashing another vendor and they weren't there to see what really happened, all they're seeing is, man, that one vendor, they're just nasty. They say so many mean things. They may not know that what you said was just. All they see is that what you said was not nice about that vendor. So it's better just to let that come from the client themselves. And I think everybody's heard it. If you have nothing nice to say at all, then say nothing. If you have nothing nice to say, then say nothing at all. And that's really the approach we say. Now, what we do on Facebook is, again, going kind of back to what I said earlier in terms of humanizing, where we leave out politics and sports and foul language and vendor critiques. We do like to occasionally include things about the fact that, again, our kids started their first day of school today, or we had a great vacation with our family doing this, because, again, it humanizes you. It kind of keeps them in touch with the fact that you have a family, you have a life, and a lot of times your clients need to be reminded, hey, my photographer is probably spending this weekend with their kids, so not a good idea for me to bug them on a Sunday afternoon about an image order that I'd like to place or an album or something like that. Let me do that on Monday instead. If they're reminded that you have a family and that you have a life outside of your business, then they're probably going to be a lot more understanding and probably a lot more sympathetic to you as a client and get more on your side. Again, being personalized is a great thing as long as you do it in a positive light. So I want to talk to you about OFD Consulting real quick. And this isn't an advertisement, but a lot of the stuff I just talked to you about, a lot of the neat things that we're doing comes from OFD Consulting. She's a marketing and PR expert that we hired last year. Her name is Megan Ely, and there's about, I think, 10 people in the entire country that do what she does. But we had great relationships, and we're doing solid networking, and then we contacted Megan, and she actually went out and found even more networking opportunities that we didn't even know about, like NACE and things like that. And her job as a networking and PR person is basically, no matter where you are in the country, to pinpoint the things that you should be doing to strengthen your position in the community. She's going to help you build relationships and help you find the networking opportunity. She's going to give you assignments and really kind of put you to task and make sure you're really killing it in the wedding industry. And our weddings, our bookings nearly doubled in a year after hiring her. We were already busy. Now we're basically turning weddings away as a result of hiring her, and I just can't speak highly enough for her. But in addition to that, the other thing she does is she works hard with the publications and blogs to get you published. So you can actually work with somebody like Megan. And like I said, there's about 10 or 15 of these in the country. So, if Megan's not the one you want to work with, I highly recommend, Googling and looking for somebody that works within the wedding industry to help basically position you with great relationships with other vendors in your area, but also to help you get published. She basically goes through every single wedding that we photograph, looks at the images, and says, based on the images I see and the type of weddings that this magazine publishes, this is a good fit. I'll submit it for you. And she goes through and does all the paperwork, submits the images, gets the pre-information from the bride and groom, and puts it in a way that it looks very, very appealing to magazines and blogs. So she's working really, really hard to basically get your name out there, to help bump your SEO up, and to basically grow your positioning not only in your community but on the web. And it just, the things that somebody like this can do for your business is fantastic. So you've got the information on your screen there. I definitely would recommend looking into her. Is just, again, I get no kickback. I get absolutely nothing out of referring her. I fully believe that having somebody that really, if you're not a marketing and PR expert, if it's not something that you're really strong at, having somebody that's extremely reasonable and is an expert at it help you is fantastic, and it's definitely worth speaking with them to help you out. And I want to ask a couple of questions to Kevin, but real quick, I do want to tell you guys, I'm going to be doing Destination Photo Education in December. I think it's December 3rd through the 8th, where we're going to be on a cruise. There's 6 instructors for 5 days. We're leaving out of Miami. We're going to Jamaica and Grand Cayman. We're doing hands-on shooting, marketing, album design, doing trash the dress sessions, family portrait sessions, baby portrait sessions. It's some of the top instructors in the industry. And literally, you get to go on vacation, and it's dirt cheap. I think it's like $300. You can book the cruise and the education, all-inclusive food and everything for like $700 or $750. You can see the site there. It's destinationphotoeducation.com. But if you guys want to come and spend 4 or 5 days with me and some other amazing instructors learning some really, really cool stuff and shooting and building your portfolio and get a vacation in December when it's really miserable here, we'd love to see you. So I do want to kind of touch back on SEO because I know something that collages.net is offering now, and like I said earlier when we talked about those new wall things that have the little blocks that you can change out that they just started. Kevin, I know you guys are offering SEO services now, and it's a service that we're getting ready to try out of yours, but I'd love to ask you a couple of questions and get you to fill all of us in about the SEO services you guys offer and how that works and exactly what it is that it does. My understanding is we basically have to think like a bride and say, okay, if I'm a bride and I'm looking for a wedding photographer, what things would I type into Google to show up? And then when I type into Google Richmond wedding photographers, who comes up and who's first, and do I show up on the first page? Because, you know, I've always heard if you're not on the first or second page, brides don't go 3, 5, 7, 8 pages deep. They're looking at the first 1 or 2 pages for photographers, and that's pretty much it. So your goal is to be right there at the top. Can you kind of fill me in on that? Because I'm kind of excited about this.
Yeah. Basically, going off of what you said is you'll choose a dream phrase, like, for example, Richmond wedding photographer. I haven't had a chance yet, because I know we literally just talked about this right before, but I haven't had a chance to see how many hits or how many local hits that gets on Google per month. But what we will do is we'll actually take that keyword and we'll put it into a free program that Google has that anyone can even take a look at. It's called Google AdWords, and you can type in the phrase or the long-tailed keyword that you're looking for, see how many local monthly hits it gets per month, and what we do is we'll take that keyword and we will give back the top 3 results that are very similar, very close to, or almost exactly the same to the keyword that you want and what will work best for your studio. Because even though you may want your keyword to be Richmond wedding photographer, sometimes just by changing the keyword by saying wedding photographers in Richmond might get 1,000 or 2,000 more hits. We'll do that research for you to see what the best options are as far as using your keyword and then writing all of the content for that so that we can eventually get your website on page 1. Because as you'll hear, now we do have a webinar tonight on starting Google optimization and all of the GSO program at Collages. But one thing that we stress, and our GSO specialist Kevin Brown stresses, is that nobody looks past the first page. People rarely even scroll down on the first page, so that's why with our services we're guaranteeing Google page 1 in under 90 days. And once we get you to page 1, what we do is we continue to send out content, and as we are continuing to push out this content, you'll slowly rise to the top so that when people type in your keyword, you will be the first, second, third, fourth person they see, and hopefully drive a lot more traffic to your studio website.
So essentially all the things that we'd be doing that we talked about earlier, that getting published and blogging and stuff like that, are basically working in conjunction with what you guys are doing. You would take and lay this foundation for us, and then all the little things we do are basically even fortifying and strengthening that. It's kind of like the perfect storm of getting people posted higher.
Exactly. I mean, what we will do, I mean, we have a proven method that is getting photographers to page 1. But we also, when you first sign up for the program and I send you the welcome email, you're actually going to get a packet on ways that you can also help speed the process up. And some of those are making sure your keyword is on your website, on your landing page, making sure the keyword we choose is in your blog post. If you're actively blogging, actively on Facebook, the more areas that Google sees your keyword, or more articles, more blog posts, the more they're seeing these keywords, the more original content they see, and that's what Google likes. Google is a very sophisticated program, so they don't want to see the same articles, they don't want to see the same documents over and over again. But what we'll do is, obviously we're putting out all of that unique content, but the more that you can put out as well will only help get you to page 1 faster and establish residency on page 1, as you like to call it.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like that. Yeah, I'm looking forward to sitting in on the blog and learning more about it and jumping on that, because it's the big thing about networking is we can do all these things to build relationships so that the vendors in the wedding industry are referring you to brides and getting you in the good hands of these great clients. But to us, we're probably about a third split, 33% on 3 different things that get us weddings. 1/3 coming from vendor referrals, which is what we just talked about. Another third coming through client referrals, where clients, previous clients who really loved our services, are sending their friends to us. And then the final third is from bridal shows and advertisement and things like that. So, that final third also includes website and SEO stuff. And, I feel like when I talk to photographers now, including ourselves, so many of us have essentially gotten to where we were just using our website as nothing more than a modern-day Yellow Pages ad, and we're not getting the full benefit out of the things we could be doing to, drive brides to that. It's almost like the old days when you had a Yellow Pages ad and there's 100 different photographers or 200 photographers listed in there. Well, what did you do to get people to choose you as a photographer? You paid the extra to have a box around your listing, or to have your listing in bold or whatever. And, that's essentially what we have, is a World Wide Web full of photographers out there that, you got to do that extra thing to get the bold listing or the box around you so that you're moved up a little higher. And that's the approach we have to take. I want to make sure that when somebody's looking, when a bride is looking in our area at the Yellow Pages, which is the World Wide Web nowadays, that I come up first and I stand out more prominently. So I'm pretty excited about jumping on the service that you guys are offering. So that's really cool. I'll be in on that webinar. That'll be awesome. Okay, that's it for me. I mean, I'm here and ready to answer some questions if anybody has anything.
Okay. Most of the questions that I was getting, I was actually able to answer using the chat field. So I actually don't have many. Actually, I don't have any for you for live Q&A. I was able to answer them all.
That's fantastic.
But what makes it a little easier for you? So what I want to do, though, I am going to change. Is it okay if I change the screen back to mine?
Go for it.
All right, cool. So I'm going to switch the screen back over to me, and I know Pete had actually just mentioned this in his while he was talking, but want to introduce the story blocks to you, kind of give an official introduction. It is the newest product available at collages.net, and the main idea behind the story blocks and the really cool aspect and the really awesome feature about this is that, as you see from the picture, is that you can replace these blocks with, as the years go on, maybe from a maternity shoot, you could show the stages of life as the child is growing up. You can start with a wedding picture and then slowly transition into family portraits. I mean, you'll probably want to get a new story block once you get an entire family portrait, but you get the idea. There's a lot of different variables and a lot of different variations that you can do with the story blocks. It is available in rows, all of the templates and all of the templates and all of the options, all of the sizes, all of the blocks are all in rows.